Hello students, we are carrying on with the process of gastrulation in which in this module we will be studying the formation of ectoderm, embryonic disc and the amniotic cavity. Now let's see, first we learn about how the second germ layer we are talking about, ectoderm, is formed. Remember, the first layer to be formed was endoderm, and then everything starts happening simultaneously. But right now we learn about ectoderm first. So watch the blastula or blastocyst in here. Now when we talk about ectoderm, students, the remaining cells of the embryoblast. Now which are the other cells of the embryoblast? Observe in here. Those cells which I have marked there, they are the other cells. The basal cells have formed endoderm. So we're talking about the other cells of the embryoblast. They also start getting different. They start differentiating. The cells which are present towards the trophoblast, they change their shape and they become tall, they become columnar, and they come very close to each other. So we say they become columnar and they become compact to form a beautiful layer of cells. Let's observe that, students. Now here, the layer you are seeing in here, this is the layer which is being formed here called as ectoderm. This is ectoderm. So the layer ectoderm is forming like this. Now talking further, students, in gastrulation, the ectoderm is this layer. Just below the ectoderm is the endoderm. Now when we observe these two layers from above, till now we've just studied ectoderm and endoderm. So these two layers, when we observe from top, they look like a plate or a disc. They look like a disc, and the entire future embryo is going to be forming from this disc. And let's observe this disc. Now this is called as embryonic disc. Let's observe it here. This structure, students, it's looking like a plate or a disc. This is called as embryonic disc. And why so? Because the entire future baby or the future embryo is going to be formed from this disc called as embryonic disc. Somewhat like this. Now formation of amniotic cavity, and a very important cavity, students. Observe the amniotic cavity in here. That space you can see where star is there. This space appears between what? It appears between the amniogenic cells. Now this is a new term for you. But what are amniogenic cells? Observe that layer there, students, which is marked in here. Now this layer is called as the amnion. So the cells forming this layer would naturally be called as amniogenic cells. These are amniogenic cells. So the cavity where on top is amniogenic cells, and below the cavity is which layer, students? The embryonic disc. And where is the embryonic disc? You can see there. That entire structure we learned from top, it looks like a disc. This is the embryonic disc. So our space appears between the amniogenic cells on top, and below on the floor what is present? The embryonic disc. Now this cavity, students, is known as amniotic cavity. Now when we talk about amniotic cavity, students, let's see. That is the amniotic cavity we are talking about. It's filled with the fluid called as amniotic fluid, produced by two structures. Remember, amniotic fluid is produced by definitely amnion or cells of amnion, which we call as amniogenic cells, and it's also produced by the embryo, students. So this amniotic fluid is released from top, from the amnion, and from the bottom it's being released by the embryo, which right now we are calling as the embryonic disc. That's the future embryo. During further development, embryon will increase greatly in size, and the embryo or fetus will lie suspended In this amniotic cavity, which is filled with amniotic fluid for the entire period of gestation, which is 9 months, students, somewhat like this. That's the amniotic sac filled with the amniotic fluid, and the fetus is there floating in the amniotic fluid. Very important fluid, students, it is, because it prevents any kind of mechanical shock and dryness. Any injury or mechanical shock is prevented by this fluid. So here, students, we completed gastrulation part 2, and we are continuing with the same process, gastrulation, in the next module. Till then, take care.